Canto 9, Chapter 4. Text 68, right? Yes. This is a fantastic verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sadhavo Hridayam Mayam. Sadho Nam Hridayam Tvaham. Mad anyate na jananti. Naham tebhyo managapi. Sadhavo hridayam mayam. Sadhu nam hridayam tvaham. Mad anyate na jananti. Naham tebhyo managapi. Ladies, please chant. Sadhavaha, the pure devotees. Hridayam, in the core of the heart. Mayam, of me. Sadhunam, of the pure devotees also. Hridayam, in the core of the heart. Tu, indeed. Aham, I am. Mat anyat, anything else but me. Te, they. Na, not. Jananti, no. Na, not. Aham, I. Tebhyaha, then them. Manak api, even by a little fraction. Translation: the pure devotee is always within the core of my heart. This is Lord Vishnu speaking. And I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. Pretty strong. So I'm inclined to do the chapter summary because this verse fits into the chapter summary, and then come back and read the purport. I don't know if that's standard, but that's my inspiration this morning. Is that okay? No complaints, okay. Chapter 4 is part of a whole section of the 9th canto. Let's step back. And a subject matter that's being discussed here is the lineages of kings that come from the Sun Dynasty and the lineages of kings that come from the Moon Dynasty. That comes later in this canto. Because Krishna appeared in the Moon Dynasty, then that leads into the 10th canto, because Krishna appears in the Moon Dynasty, and some things are said in the 9th canto, and it leads to more questions and answers. Maharaj Parikshit wants to hear more about Krishna. So why are we interested in dynasties of kings? And the answer of why we're interested in anything. Just this morning I was listening to a recording of Srila Prabhupada speaking about Maharaj Parikshit. And the subject matter, this morning's recording, was Maharaj Parikshit dealing with Kali personified. And Kali personified is doing bad stuff. And Maharaj Parikshit is a protector of innocent praja of all descriptions, not just human or not just his family or his group of people, but all living entities, because he's qualified. Then Prabhupada stopped the narration and a little pause and said, why are we interested in this? Why are we interested in anything? Why are we interested in lineages of kings? Newspapers are filled with stuff of this guy did something bad to that guy, this politician said this, that politician countered by saying that, and wars, and there's a lot of battling going on amongst Kshatriyas. So why Mahabharata? Why we have some interest in Ramayana battle and battles this, battle that? Why all this? So it's a good to step back and say why. And the answer is a very simple principle, that which enhances my devotion for Krishna. Otherwise, we leave it to the side. At least those who are serious and sincere in following the principles taught in a devotional life, we leave other subject matters to the side, and we focus instead on subject matters that are going to enhance. So, anakosyalsya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. What does that mean? In the 6 limbs of surrender, the first 2, accept things favorable, reject things unfavorable. To what? To developing our attachment to Krishna, because we're attached to things unrelated to Krishna, and that's a problem. Attachment isn't a problem. Attachment to things unrelated to Krishna is a problem. Affection is not a problem. Affection, and then in turn attachment to things unrelated to Krishna, it's a problem. Now for many people it's not a problem, it's life. And then with life comes problems due to affinity for the temporary, or that which has no attachment to Krishna. So what about anything of this world that's also temporary? This building. or things that we use in Krishna service. The nice Sanskrit word tadiya, that which is in relation to Krishna. So we're interested because it's in relation to Krishna. So it leads to the topics of Krishna, but even before it leads to the topics of Krishna, we're going to hear in this chapter and the whole 9th canto things that they're in relation to Krishna, and if you see and hear them in relation to Krishna, it strengthens your attachment for Krishna. Otherwise, it's just histories that are, learning history has its place, but not in relation to Krishna. It covers consciousness, and covered consciousness is not fun. It leads to misery. Or it's the root cause, the Vedic understanding, the Vaishnava understanding, the root cause of suffering is ignorance. And ignorance covers a living entity, and with that ignorance comes ignorant desires. Ignorant desires lead to ignorant activity. Ignorant activity leads to suffering. The root cause is ignorance, and that the essence of ignorance is ignoring Krishna. So the antidote to ignorance is knowledge of Krishna. Or then with that knowledge of Krishna, then hearing about Krishna again and again, remembering Krishna, remembering our relationship with Krishna. So that's why we're interested in lineages of kings, because it's in relation to Krishna. So the chapter begins with chapter 4 of Canto 9. It begins with describing one of the sons of Vaivasvata Manu. Vaivasvata Manu is the current Manu. Bhagavatam goes back to the many Manus ago, Swayambhuva Manu. But Vaivasvata Manu is our current Manu. Vaivasvata Manu was the son of Vivaswan, so it's the Sun dynasty. And the eldest of the sons of Manu was Ikshvaku, and he started the Sun dynasty on earth, and thus the lineage of kings in the Sun dynasty. But another one of Vaivasvata Manu's sons was Nabhaga. And Nabhaga, we don't hear too much about, but his name is mentioned. He had a son named after him. Modern times would be Nagaba II, or Junior, or something like that. His name was Nabhaga. Nabhaga. This is a chapter summary. Nabhaga went to the ashram of his guru, doesn't give the name, and in the ashram of the guru he was becoming trained how to become a qualified person. And because he was born in the royal family, he then was supposed to rule, but he stayed a long time. And the elder brother, Nabhaga, he was very gentle, and his younger brothers got ambitious. Like he was gone so long, they thought maybe he's not going to come back. Maybe he's just going to stay in the guru's ashram and become a renounced person. Now, a cultural detail, is kings don't take the order of sannyas. Brahmanas may take the order of sannyas, may not, but kings do not. Just a little detail. Prabhupada's story. A few years ago, like maybe 45 years ago, there wasn't a BBT. Before there was a BBT, there was a publishing division called ISKCON Press. In ISKCON Press, Prabhupada's wisdom said he should protect his intellectual property by creating a trust. And so he settled all of his writings in the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and all of those people and all the the machinery and everything went over there to the trust. It was donated by ISKCON to the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and from there on it was BBT. But at a certain point of time, it was ISKCON Press. And during some period of time, ISKCON Press was in New York. It started in Boston and went to New York by Prabhupada's instruction. And when Prabhupada came to visit in New York, he would stay about a week, and one of the days, the artists who had been laboring devotionally for Prabhupada would bring their art pieces for Prabhupada to view. And, as a loving father would do, he would, in the presence of all the other artists, make some words of encouragement, some appreciation, some recommendation, some modification, so they were getting instruction as artists how to do their service nicely. So one of the art pieces was, because Prabhupada had already published first canto, so they were making additional paintings for the next publication, the first canto. So one of the paintings was Maharaj Yudhisthira heading for the North Country after hearing from Arjuna that Krishna had left. He, Yudhisthira, turned the kingdom over to his grandson, Maharaj Parikshit, and along with his 4 brothers, all 5 of them, headed for the North Country. Means they went to the Himalayas to end their material existence by the final stages of their life, just engaging in austerities, fixing their attention on Krishna. So the painting showed, it's still in the BBT, still in the first canto artwork. It showed Yudhisthira with a tridanda, with a beard, climbing up the Himalaya mountains. And Prabhupada chuckled. I was in the room, I remember. Prabhupada said, Kshatriyas do not accept sannyas. They renounce, so saffron is okay, but they don't take tridanda sannyas. He said, but it's okay, you can leave it. He appreciated the art, and they could have just painted over the danda and it would have been fine, but he said, leave it. So, Nabhaga, the son of Nabhaga, his brothers thought maybe he's just going to stay in the ashram and become a renunciate. So when it became, the father was still alive, Nabhaga was still alive when this happened. The brothers, remaining brothers, divided the kingdom of their father amongst themselves. They would rule this, they would rule that, the other would rule the other, under the authority of their father. So after the departure of their father, they would continue to rule. Then Nabhaga came back. And Nabhaga, being very gentle, I'm ready to rule. Said, oh, everything's divided already. So you can accept our father as your property. No such thing. But being very simple, Nabhaga went to his father and said what they said. And Nabhaga's father, Nabhaga, said, they've cheated you. There's no such thing. You're my son, you can't own me as your property. Here's what you should do. Now it gets a little unclear, to me at least. He said there's a yajna going on, and Angira, who's one of his very celebrated Brahmana rishi, they're doing a yajna, and they won't complete their yajna because there's 2 mantras that are missing. Here's the 2 mantras. Now he's a king, and he knows what the mantras are. It's not that kings don't know mantras. And somehow he knew that they didn't know, and he gave them the 2 mantras. And you go and he helped them finish the yajna. When they finish the yajna, whatever wealth they have, because they're charitable, they'll give it to you. And that's what you will have as your charity. So he went, he just very submissive and obedient to his father, and he went and they gave him wealth. And it's very interesting. There's a statement after that story, after that narration, where one who hears this narration gets a certain benediction. Oh, Nabhaga received the riches, I forgot, and as he was taking the riches back, Lord Shiva in disguise appeared and said, "That property belongs to me, give it to me." And Nabhaga said, "The Brahmanas gave it to me." And Lord Shiva in disguise said, "We have a dispute here. Let's take it to your father." Lord Shiva said. Now, Lord Shiva could smash him or anything, but let's take it to your father to teach a lesson. And so they went. And they went to his father, and his father said, "It's correct. What was told to you is correct, because Lord Shiva, during the Daksha Yajna, everything went to the Brahmanas, and so the Brahmanas gave it all to Lord Shiva, so it belongs to Lord Shiva." So what did Nabhaga do? He accepted what his father said. He offered his obeisances to Lord Shiva. "Everything in the sacrificial arena is yours. This is the assertion of my father. Now, with great respect, I bow my head before you, begging your mercy." Lord Shiva said, "Whatever your father said is the truth, and you also are speaking the same truth. Therefore, I, who know the Vedic mantras, shall explain transcendental knowledge to you." So Lord Shiva gave him transcendental knowledge because he saw that he was qualified. And then after giving transcendental knowledge, "Now you may take all the wealth remaining from the sacrifice, for I give it to you." After saying this, Lord Shiva, who is most adherent to religious principles, poof, he disappeared. And then here comes the Pala Stuti. This Pala Stuti means the fruit, the benefit that goes to one who hears this narration. So you've heard the narration. Here's what Shukadeva Goswami says. If one hears and chants or remembers this narration in the morning, this is the morning, and evening, and then there's a qualifier, with great attention, he certainly becomes learned, experienced in understanding the Vedic hymns, and expert in self-realization. So I hope you feel pretty good about hearing that. And you just have to be attentive, then hear it again tonight. And that's so lineages of kings from one of the sons of Vaivasvata Manu, Nabhaga, and his son was Ambarish Maharaj. Wonderful story. Anyone here unfamiliar with the Maharaj Ambarish story? Okay, a few. Unfamiliar. Okay. Great person. Summary. He, as it's said in many, many ways, he had enormous wealth because the enormous wealth came from as a natural fruit of his piety and his devotion. And he was completely unattached. He considered it no more meaningful than a pebble. Supposing you're walking back to the ashram and you see a pebble on the sidewalk. Going to get excited? I don't think so. Enormous wealth, but to him it meant nothing. But he used it. He used it in service to the personality of Godhead. There's in this chapter another very celebrated verse before the pastime happens, just to, Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo Vaichangsi Vaikuntha Gunana Varnana. So many of you know the verse. Some of you may know the verse. Prabhupada quoted it often. Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo. That's how it starts. So Maharaj Ambarish was a Krishna Bhakta. There's nice painting, he had a Krishna deity, and every morning he's the emperor of the world, and he didn't come out to do anything for his emperorship until he completed his morning activities. And it was like a long morning program for Maharaj Ambarish. Worshipping, chanting, praying, absorbed in Krishna. Sa vai mana. Mana means mind. Krishna padaravindayo, in the lotus feet of Krishna. It means serving him, etc. So in this way, Maharaj Ambarish was totally fixed. Now, in his kingdom was already great wealth. And he wasn't interested in getting more wealth. Some people are interested in getting more wealth. He wasn't. He was interested in benefiting his citizens. And one of the things that happens when a leader, like a king, who is the representative of God, engages in beneficial activities like austerities, etc., the benefit goes, everything depends upon the intention of the performer. It's an important lesson. Sankalpa is the term. Sankalpa means intention. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, one of the 6 Goswamis was Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Do you know who is Gopal Bhatta Goswami? You know who is the 6 Goswamis? No? You know who is Lord Chaitanya? The principal associates, amongst the many super elevated personalities, chief amongst them, of all of them, celebrated-wise, is the 6 Goswamis. They're persons who Mahaprabhu personally instructed and sent them to Vrindavan to do service, specifically write books and find places of pilgrimage, places of Krishna's pastimes. There's other things, but those 2 main things, 6 Goswamis. So they did it in a royal style. One of those 6 was Gopal Bhatta. Gopal Bhatta was the son of the chief priest in Srirangam. Where is Srirangam? It's the largest temple in all of India. Very celebrated place. And his father was the chief priest. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was traveling in South India for 2 years, he spent the 4 months of the rainy season in the house of Venkata Bhatta. And little Gopal was 7 to 10 years old. It's not clear exactly his age. And he got Lord Chaitanya's association for 4 months. and many things, nice things happened. He wanted to travel with Mahaprabhu. After he left, he said, "No, you stay and serve your parents." So he stayed there for another 20-something years. Became a young man, became like a 30-year-old person before he left. And while he was there, Gopal Bhatta, being the son of the chief priest, and that's like a high position, he learned everything about deity worship. And not only deity worship, all kinds of procedures in conducting ceremonies, like marriage and everything that there are ceremonies. And he wrote a book on a how-to manual and how to conduct ceremonies. Sat Kriya Deepika. There's a whole section in that book describing how to consecrate or sanctify sankalpa. I'm describing this to elaborate a little bit on what sankalpa means. It's a big deal. There are non-devotional activities. Supposing somebody's a demigod worshipper, and they go to a priest. Can you perform a puja so my daughter has a nice husband, or before the wedding, I'd like my daughter and her future son to have a nice marriage, or I'm beginning a business, I want to have success in my business, or etc., etc., etc. Some material something. So the Brahmana must know what the sankalpa is, and that determines what mantras he selects. In Vaishnava life, there's also a very important item called sankalpa. It's like when you chant. Why chant? What's the purpose? What's your intention? Sankalpa is very important to get the result. It's a fact. And done properly, it will help you fix the mind. And if it's not a clear sankalpa, things are a little foggy, or not sharp, not clear, not focused. So sankalpa has a function. So whenever he would do everything, Ambarish Maharaj had a sankalpa. So he, to benefit his citizens, decided to perform a 1-year Ekadasi Vrata, because it's known, today's Ekadasi, right? So Ekadasi is an auspicious day in Vaishnava life, not even non-Vaishnava, in Vedic life. Even those that aren't Vaishnavas, it's an auspicious day. And he established a vrata, a vow, where every Ekadasi he would perform a certain kind of fast, and then the next day morning he would perform a certain kind of breaking of the fast. And it's a very strong vow for both Ekadasi and the breaking of the fast Dwadasi. For that he would get some merit. The purpose of that merit, the sankalpa, was this merit should go to my citizens. That was why he did what he did. Because he was a good king. He was very concerned with the well-being of his citizens. So what happened was, he's doing his vrata, and as he's doing his vrata, on the final Ekadasi day and the Dwadasi morning, the next morning, just as, because there's a certain period of time when you're supposed to break the fast, and just as he was preparing to break the fast, into the royal assembly, he did his morning deity worship and everything, and he was ready to break the fast. In comes Durvasa Muni with his thousands of followers. He's a great king. Durvasa Muni is not a great devotee, but he's a great mystic and renunciate, very powerful. So not out of fear, but out of respect, he stood. He stopped the ritual in order to honor, which is more important, you honor the great personality. And as he was honoring the great personality, Durvasa Muni was very pleased. He said, well, you want me to break the fast first, but before I break the fast first, I have to take my morning bath. I'm a Brahmana. We bathe before we break the fast, even on Dwadasi. Shri Shri Radha Leela Madhava Ki Jai. So he went to the river Jamuna to perform his morning bath and chant Gayatri. And because he wasn't a personalist, he was engaged in meditation on Brahman. And as we know from Bhagavad Gita, it may take a long time to meditate on Brahman. And time was running out to break the fast. So he asked the Brahmanas what to do, because it's time to break the fast. But Durvasa Muni, don't sit in the middle. Thank you. Durvasa Muni hasn't come back yet. What should I do? So sometimes Brahmanas are smart and they know tricky answers. There's a way to break the fast and not break the fast. What you do is you performed your puja this morning of your deity. Take some drops of Charanamrita in the palm of your hand and you break the fast but not break the fast. So that's what he did, under the instruction of the Brahmanas. Durvasa Muni, being clairvoyant, he understood what happened. When he came back, he was enraged. You broke the fast first. You're an offender. Actually, the real issue was Durvasa Muni was envious because he wasn't a pure devotee. He was envious of how much honor and prestige and fame this Maharaj Ambarish has, more than me. That was what was behind the anger. So he cursed him. And the curse was in the form of, he took some pieces of hair from his long hair and dashed them to the ground along with a mantra that created a fiery demon, and he pointed the fiery demon in the direction of the king. Kill him. Now, if you're a king, supposing you're not a king, you're just somebody, and here comes this thing charging at you with the order to kill you. What are you going to do? Without thinking about it, at least your hands go up to protect, because that's what arms do. They give protection. Nothing. The Bhagavatam specifically says not only his body didn't move, his mind didn't move. Huh? Here comes this fiery death personality, and your mind doesn't move? How advanced was Maharaj Ambarish? But Krishna protected him, or Vishnu, because he was a Krishna Bhakta, also Vishnu Bhakta. Lord Vishnu sent his Sudarshan Chakra, like lightning speed, and chopped the fiery demon. And the way that it works when black magic kind of things happen, if it doesn't succeed, then it goes back to the person who sent the black magic. So Sudarshan Chakra did a U-turn and started heading towards Durvasa Muni, and he understood what that meant. So, being a mystic, he hightailed it out as fast as he could, and he went to Lord Brahma, he went to Lord Shiva, finally he went to Lord Vishnu, because they said, look, you've offended a great devotee, and this is Sudarshan Chakra under the control of Lord Vishnu. You have to go to Lord Vishnu. So it's repeated so many times, it took him a whole year to go to Lord Vishnu's abode. Now, which abode of Lord Vishnu is being spoken about? It's not in the spiritual world, but it's a spiritual planet where the abode of Lord Vishnu is. In this world, there's an abode of Lord Vishnu. Correct? What's the name of that place? Svetadvip, right? It's the pole star where Dhruva Maharaj resides, and that's the place where he went. He came before Lord Vishnu, fell at his feet. I made a big mistake. I've offended your devotee. Help. And then this verse, this morning's verse, is from that section. It's towards the end of the chapter. Lord Vishnu essentially says, you've offended the devotee. You have to go to the devotee whom you've offended. Because I'm not going to interfere with what Sudarshan Chakra wants to do. Because you've offended my devotee. Sudarshan Chakra is after you. And so here's a description of the relationship between a pure devotee like Maharaj Ambarish and the Supreme Lord. And the verse is saying, he's in my heart, and I'm in his heart, and we're inseparable. And that's the nature of a pure devotee. So I'll read the purport, and then we'll finish the chapter. Ready for the purport? Text 68. Since Durvasa Muni wanted to chastise Maharaj Ambarish, it is to be understood that he wanted to give pain to the heart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the Lord says, Sadhavo Hridayam Mayam, that's the first line of the verse. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart. If you're going to hurt the pure devotee, you're going to hurt the core of my heart. The Lord's feelings are like those of a father who feels pain when his child is in pain. Therefore, offenses at the lotus feet of a devotee are serious. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has very strongly recommended that one not commit any offense at the lotus feet of a devotee. Such offenses are compared to a mad elephant, because when a mad elephant enters a garden, it causes devastation. Therefore, one should be extremely careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. Actually, Maharaj Ambarish was not at all at fault. That is, breaking but not breaking the fast. Durvasa Muni unnecessarily wanted to chastise him on flimsy grounds. Maharaj Ambarish wanted to complete the Ekadasi Parana, or vow, as part of a devotional service to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he drank a little water. But although Durvasa Muni was a great mystic Brahmana, he did not know what is what. That is the difference between a pure devotee and a so-called learned scholar of Vedic knowledge. The devotees, being always situated in the core of the Lord's heart, surely get all instructions directly from the Lord, as confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 10:11. Tesham evanukam partam aham agyanajam tamaha nashayam yatmabhavasto jnana dipena vasmita. It's one of the Chatur Sloki verses of Bhagavad Gita, the last of them. Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. The devotee does not do anything not sanctioned by the Supreme Personality Godhead, as it is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyena Bhujaya. Even the most learned or experienced person cannot understand the movements of a Vaishnava, a pure devotee. No one, therefore, should criticize a pure devotee, a pure Vaishnava. A Vaishnava knows his own business, semicolon. Whatever he does is precisely right because he is always guided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the chapter ends by Lord Vishnu saying, I'm going to instruct you what to do now that you made this mess for your own protection. You've acted with self-envy. Therefore, you should go to him immediately without a moment's delay. Now, meanwhile, Sudarshan Chakra is hot. It's like his body is being scorched by being pursued. He was just beyond the reach of Sudarshan Chakra. One's so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it. Thus, it is the subject, not the object, who is harmed. For a Brahmana, austerity and learning are certainly auspicious, but when acquired by a person who is not gentle, such austerity and learning are most dangerous. O best of the Brahmanas, you should therefore go immediately to King Ambarish, the son of Maharaj Nabhaga. I wish you all good fortune. If you can satisfy Maharaj Ambarish, then there will be peace for you. And that's how the chapter ends. And the next chapter is lickety-split. He goes to Maharaj Ambarish and gets rescued. And how that happens is also very nice. Okay. Any discussion? Yes. We have a microphone?
How should we respond when we hear devotees blaspheming devotees publicly?
Well, there's three things you can do. Defeat them in argument, give up your life, or leave the place. That's scriptural. And people that blaspheme others publicly, generally they're not ready to be corrected. No, there's, besides those three defeating the person in an argument, you know, in practical terms, in a public forum, if anybody is blaspheming another Vaishnava, not only an exalted Vaishnava, but a Vaishnava, you, as the one who's hearing this, should understand it's an offense, and you become recipient of the offense that they committed if you just remain numb. So you have to do something. So those are the three somethings. Then comes, what you do afterwards. So there's different things of what you can do afterwards. For example, one of the things you can, if there's a senior devotee that may not have heard the public offense, or maybe, it's not even necessarily a public offense, but some kind of communication that was offensive to a pure devotee, then the authority person, spiritual or administrative authority person, needs to know, so that going into the future, the innocent persons can be protected, because innocent persons will be harmed just by hearing. So then those administrative persons or senior persons that may not be administrators, they need to carefully consider how to protect. So that's something that you also can do. This came to my attention recently, like somebody heard. And so they took it to their authority. And not much happened. some time passed, and then I heard about it, so I went to the authority. Did you hear this? That they said this, and what have you done, and what's your plan? And the main business is protecting innocent devotees. So I didn't design an action plan for this leader, but I requested them, for your own well-being, for your own spiritual well-being, your duty is to protect innocent. So make a plan to protect innocent. And, minimally, this was what I, going forward in time, this person should not be put in a prominent position of service. They can do, anyone can do service, but so a very nice example of this is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. No, we're not living during Lord Chaitanya's time, but there's principles that are instructive of, in response to your question, what to do. In one of the examples in Chaitanya, there's more than one, but one of the examples in Chaitanya Charitamrita was Devananda Pandit. You know that pastime? Yes, a little bit. So. Devananda Pandit, our newer devotees, listen. It's like, how do you handle the situation when you hear criticism of a Vaishnava? So Devananda Pandit was a Pandit. He was a learned person, a very capable Brahmana in scholarship, and he had a particular affection for Srimad Bhagavatam, but he didn't understand Bhagavan, because Bhagavat Purana is about Bhagavan, and he didn't understand personalism, but he had an attraction for the composition of Bhagavatam, so he would speak on it, and he was a good speaker, so he had assembly, and one time when he was speaking, passing by that assembly where he was speaking was Srivas Pandit. Who's Srivas Pandit? He's one of the Panchatattva members, the one on the far right. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, then going the other direction, Gadadhar, then Srivas. So Srivas Pandit, exalted person, pure devotee. And when he was hearing verses being recited from Srimad Bhagavatam, he fainted on the ground in a swoon of ecstasy. And the persons that were like the bouncers, the guards for this gathering, they saw this man fall on the ground and they picked him up and tossed him out. And Devananda Pandit didn't say anything, didn't do anything, he just kept going. He wasn't an active participant, but he was responsible for his silence in such a situation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu later came and chastised Devananda Pandit severely for speaking A and B, speaking Bhagavatam without understanding its purpose. You're just puffed up scholar, and you've offended Srivas Pandit. Not just like shame on you. So this is what Mahaprabhu did, because it was an offense. It wasn't he spoke against, that's a stronger offense. But he didn't stop his bouncers or his guards from, treating Srivas that way. Some time passed. So this is the correction lila. The correction lila was another one of Lord Chaitanya's great associates. So he had many great associates. The 6 Goswamis were at the top. But another great associate was Vrikreshwara Pandit. Vrikreshwara Pandit, many things to say about him, but he was a pure devotee, and he knew Srimad Bhagavatam, and one of his expertises was singing and dancing. And when he danced high in the air, and it is said specifically, one time during ecstatic kirtan, he was dancing and dancing and dancing, not just like, having fun, but ecstatic dancing, jubilant dancing for 72 hours straight. 72 hours? How many days is 72 hours? 3 days. Morning till night, and to the next morning, and to the next night, and to the next morning, and the next night. So he was a good dancer. And he was visiting one time in the town where Devananda Pandit lived. The town where he lived was Navadvip. It was known by a different name at that time. Kulia, it was known at that time. And he was in kirtan, he was dancing. And as he was dancing, it was in ecstasy. And as he was in ecstasy dancing during kirtan, what happens? A crowd formed around him. So Devananda Pandit saw the dancing, the ecstatic dancing of Akreshwara Pandit. So he took his walking stick, because he was a little bit older, and held out his walking stick to make room for Akreshwara Pandit to dance without interruption. And he was in awe of not just the dancing skill, but the ecstasy that was being exhibited by Vikreshwara Pandit. So he, Devananda Pandit, was a Brahmin. Vikreshwara Pandit was a Brahmin. He invited him to come to his home for a meal. And then he requested him, if it's possible, can you stay with me for some days? So that happened. And as he stayed with Devananda Pandit for some days, two things. He explained Srimad Bhagavatam to him in a way that he'd never understood. And two, he explained who was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he, Devananda Pandit, was a contemporary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who had no faith in him. But through the association of the pure devotee, Vikreshwara Pandit, he changed inside. Still, there's this lingering offense. And sometime later, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also visited Kulia, and Vikreshwara and Devananda Pandit came to him, confessing the mistakes that he had made, and remembering the chastisement that Mahaprabhu had given him, and begged forgiveness. And Mahaprabhu said, because you have served Vikreshwara Pandit, I will give you forgiveness. But you have to go to Srivas Pandit and personally fall at his feet and beg his forgiveness. So, one of the things to do when you hear is pray for the improvement of such an offender, and that may a pure Vaishnava, a Vikreshwara Pandit like Vaishnava, come into their life and rescue them from such propensities. Now that's something you can do. And don't mix with such persons again. Because we're not Vikreshwara Pandits. We don't have the capacity to change somebody's heart that's like that. Those who offend, let's go to the Mahabharata. Duryodhana, in the public assembly, offended Vidura, who was a pure devotee. Vidura understood two things. This is decreasing whatever piety was in him to allow him to be in a position of authority. He's depleting to zero. It's on the material side. So it wasn't like he's going to get his and I'm content because he's going to get smacked, and That's all I need to know. He's going to get smacked. I'll retaliate. But he understood what was going on, and Vidura also understood Krishna was making some opportunity for him for further purification, which he didn't know exactly what that was going to be. But when he left, because that's what he did, he got up and left. Because he, after being insulted, there's no need to. There's no service for me here, so he left. And in the course of leaving, by the internal potencies arrangement, he met Maitreya and became perfect. So when you leave a situation where someone has been offended, you don't know what's next for you, but you know that you've done the right thing. You don't stick around in the vicinity of somebody who's very offensive, but you can pray for them. Krishna, please relieve this person of this mentality. Because they're only going to hurt themselves and anybody else that hears their stuff. And authorities need to, put some boundaries around such a person. But by this, they're self-imploding, and we don't find satisfaction. They're going to get theirs, but it's unfortunate. But that's what does happen. It's in Krishna's hands. Unless they go to the person acknowledging their mistake. That also does happen sometimes. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.